Hi, in this video we're going to have a look at removing the RF modulator for an Atari 800XL with a view to fitting a DIN13 connector to carry the RGB video from a VBXE board, which we're going to fit to the machine afterwards. So the first job is going to be removing the RF modulator. So let's get into that and see how we can go about it. And a lot of people have difficulty with getting enough heat into these solder joints here. We've got little twisted lugs on them. The lugs aren't always twisted, but in this case they are. So what we're going to have to do is use this tip here. One of my favourite tips, not a one that I use for day-to-day situations, but in this situation it's very good because it sinks a hell of a lot of heat. And as we can see, if we apply the iron here, it's melting this solder no problem at all. What we really need to do is to be able to twist this lug. We could probably try and twist it while it's hot, which would probably be the optimum way of doing it. Let's try see if we can do that. There we go. So we twisted that straight while the solder was melted. And we do the same at the front. I don't want to damage these wires here that are for video. The other wire on the left, by the way, is carrying 5-volt supply, which helps video output. Anyway, I'm going to get this melted, and I'm going to try and grip and twist. It's a bit trickier, this one. If I go in from the other side, maybe it'll be a bit easier. That'll just about do. More or less straight. There we go. So what I think we'll also do is add some leaded solder. So let's add some leaded solder to this. Put a bit on the back as well. Okay, alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wedge this screwdriver in the back here. That one's a bit too thick. Just so I can get a little bit of a purchase on the back. Just there. And I'm going to heat this up. And then just lift the board a little bit. I've got myself a bit of a gap there. You can see the board's bending a little bit, so we're going to try and minimise that. But if we heat these side tabs as well, we can ease the stress on the board at that point, because the middle is going to naturally come up a little bit. The middle of the RF modulator rather. And then we can go in with a slightly thicker screwdriver and just repeat this process a few times until we get the back lifted off without too much stress. So we heat that up sufficiently so that it's going to move. Hear it creaking and groaning. Right, so now we can go a bit further at the back. So the lug's almost completely out now. ease the sides a little bit. And I think the next attempt on the back is gonna be the one. Hopefully, when we get the lug out completely. I think it is just about there. There we go, it's moved. That's just lifted itself out there. Okay, just about ready to go at the back. One more push. And we're there. There we go. So the back lug, it's kind of resting on the top there, but it is out now. So we should be able to wiggle it around a bit so that we get the sides out. And be careful because it's getting pretty warm. There we go. A bit of wiggling. There we go, sides are out, so we can, the sides are out, you see the board isn't bent. Now we've got fully released there at the side, there we go, that's it, it was just holding on a bit, so there, so the RF modulator is fully lifted up now, it's only holding on by that front lug which we can now work on. And try and twist it out. I'll try and get it so that you can see it. So we're going to just apply some heat here and just wiggle, 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 wiggle. And we just try and drag this front lug out. Hopefully comes out without breaking in half. If we twist it a bit. There we go, and it's out, just held on by the 3 wires now, so we'll just make short work of these. There we go, and it's out. So there you go, one RF modulator removed. Get it in focus pretty cleanly. All the lugs are still there, everything's still in one piece. We'll put that to one side. Now we just have to clear these holes, clean things up a little bit, get a bit of wick, but without an iron or tip capable of putting enough heat through, this kind of job's going to be a complete nightmare. I don't think wick's going to do it without a bit of flux. Try a bit of flux on here. If that fails, we'll go for the old solder pump. I'm going to try and get it nice and clean because we're going to put the DIN13 connector just at the back here. Everything. Okay, so you can see we've got all the gunk around it, but that back slot here looking reasonably neat. So we'll just get rid of the rest of the solder and all the other holes, and we can see about drilling the holes for the connector. just about done the job. You want to focus? There we go. This needs a bit of cleaning up, but looks basically fine. You can see how nice this looks after a bit of cleaning. Here we go. One reasonably clean looking removal job. Okay, so the next thing we need to do here is apply our template, because we want a DIN13 plug to go around about here. Now I want to line it up reasonably well with the original hole. So to do that, I want it pretty much aligned with the right hand edge, but we don't want to run into these traces here, so it's a little bit of a compromise to get it in just the right spot. Now we can go just about to the right hand edge of that bounding box on the silk screen, and that should be absolutely fine. There we go. Now I want to get this nice and straight, so I want it in just a little bit from the edge. That's fine. I would say this is probably the optimal position. Looks about right, so there we go. So that's where our connector is going to go, and I'm just going to punch out these holes with a bradawl. Nice to do all this heavy work on top of here. It saves the desk a little bit. So I'm going to put this cork board underneath here. I'm going to take this off. Don't want to damage this. Go. Push that a little bit further in so you can see it reasonably well. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that there's a ground plane all over the top of this board. Now, we're going to grind that off later on, but do not grind that off the board until you've drilled the holes, because it is almost impossible to accurately punch and drill these holes when you've already scraped that stuff off and you've just got bare board underneath. It's much more difficult. So my advice is to do it this way: get the holes in first, then and only then grind off the copper, and you should have a good job at the end of it. Put the ground pin at the front, and the screen leaf, which sometimes just unfortunately ends up in the same place as one of those slots, but never mind. So this is, I think, it's about half. I think it's about. It could be a millimeter. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a ½ millimeter or a millimeter. I guess it's a millimeter. It's I think it's a 1 millimeter drill. Okay, don't need it to be too quick. Of course, with these being tapped in, you can feel when the drill's in the correct position. Okay, last one. And these two. Okay, and let's take it off and see how we did. Well, it looks pretty good to me. Alright, I'll give you a look at this. There we go. There is our little array of holes for the connector. I'll get a connector so you can see it. And here's our connector. If you feel like focusing, there we go. I'll test fit this in here, make sure I've done it right. There we go. And that was that. Perfectly at right angles, but I think it's pretty good. And look at the underneath, where the pins are coming through. And I have missed those traces, which is good, so there's no trace patching to do or anything. Next job, we'll take this off and we'll grind away the copper off the top. Now, I absolutely would advise eye protection when you're doing this, of course, because you're going to get potentially bits of flying metal coming off the board. It shouldn't be too bad, but I do wear my glasses, some form of protection. So I was going to go ahead. The strain relief holes and the ground pin, which is the bottom pin here, we can leave the copper on there, but everywhere else it needs to come off. Okay, so this is going to be just fine. Here we go. So we've got rid of all the copper there. So you've got a bit off course at the side, but that's not a problem. Connector is going to be sitting over the top of that, and I'll have a bit of hot glue around it, and I've left a little bit of the copper on the bottom there. Actually, I'll take that off there. That's connected to ground anyway. I would have left it there if it had any use as a sort of a strain relief capacity, but it doesn't on this particular example, so I took it off. Just don't want any ground problems later on whereby the VBXE didn't like being connected directly to the what have you. I can't foresee any problems, but just in case. And we'll have a look now it's cleaned up, and there we go, and on the bottom, and the bottom obviously where we're going to actually attach our wires when the time comes. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this thing in. Okay, now before applying the hot glue, I'm going to heat up the board in this area because I don't want the glue to go off too quickly. Alright, apply our glue. Now we don't want the glue to go right underneath where the pins are going to go because we're going to end up with a real mess. So I'm going to put it around the outside, around the back, around about there, and then push this thing in here. And there we go, it's gone in very nicely. I'll twist it round so it's nice and straight, and then just hold it in position. I'll try not to slice my finger open. There we go. And I think that looks pretty nice. Board mounted all the way. None of this holes in the back of the case business. Well, there is going to be a hole in the back of the case, of course, but it's not going to be. The connector isn't going to be attached to the hole in the back of the case. We'll just fill that back part in there with a bit of glue. The connector isn't solely held in by the glue. We're going to solder a little bit of wire on the back side of the board between these two strain relief pins, which just to add a little bit of extra rigidity. But I've never had one of these fall off yet. They're pretty secure. And we've chopped that bit of glue off the back with a knife. There we are. So I think that's a pretty neat looking job. Okay, so let's now drill the hole in the back of the case. We'll firstly line up the connector, see where we need to be, more or less. So if we have a look at where the connector lines up with the existing hole, when we get the board in the correct position, there we go. So we can see it's kind of on the edge, so we need to really align the hole so that the new edge of the hole, the new circumference, is just a little tiny bit outside of this side here, and more expansive over this side here. I've traced a hole of the appropriate size on the back here in exactly the correct position, and I'm just going to Dremel that out and then tidy it up, dress it if you like with files. Okay, so there's the bulk of the plastic cut out, and believe it or not, when I'm finished with it, it's going to look great. Okay, here's our hole, almost finished. Oh, only got the wrong hole there. Just like a bit of firing down the bottom edge here. Okay, so after a bit of dressing, there's the hole. And we're going to seal it with a little bit of acetone on the edge, on the end of a Q-tip. Now we give it a little test fit, which is always a little bit of an unknown, because it's very hard to get this to line up exactly correctly, but it should look good. Okay, that's sealed up now with acetone. There we are, switch box. It's hard to see which is the new hole. And we'll pop the board in, and with a bit of luck, it'll be more or less where it's supposed to be. Give you an idea how it's going to look when it's done. How does this look? Oh yes, oh yes, very nice. Well, I'll hold this upright and you can see better how it looks, and I think that looks more or less as you would expect out of the factory, apart from the fact it says switch box on the bottom, a little bit off center. So there we go. Alright, so that's how we fit a DIN13 connector on the back of one of these machines. And the next thing we need to do is obviously to put the VBXE board itself in and wire the thing up, but hopefully you'll agree that looks pretty nice. So that's it for this one. Hope you found it interesting, and join me for the rest of the job in the next video. Bye-bye for now.